Today we'll be taking a look at System Center Operation Manager 2019 Update Rollup 1. So Update Rollup 1 actually came out on February 5th, I believe, of 2020 and introduced several new features, new installation process that you can use to deploy and upgrade your management server. And today we're going to just walk through what that whole process is, where to download the files, and a brief overview of some of the new features. So let's go ahead and get started. So here we are. I'm sitting on a SCOM 2019 server that has been fully patched up to the latest patches for February 2020. The server is running Windows Server 2019. And so first thing first, we're going to just go ahead and hop over to the browser. So here we're seeing, as far as new features, there's a multi-language installer available. So instead of you having to download various different languages, it's kind of fully integrated with the various different languages to kind of simplify that whole process. There's also a simplified management server patching process. So in previous releases, whenever you have to upgrade your management server with a new update rollup, there are several steps. You would have to, one, run the installation for the management server is set up. There's typically a database tweak that you'll have to run, or a SQL query that you'll run on Operation Manager database as well as data warehouse. And then there's also a part where you would have to import the updated manager packs. So this new process simplifies that, where it does all of those steps automatically for you for the management server. So it's kind of you run the installer and then it does all those background tasks for you automatically. It's greatly simplified in that. So some other changes here is there's a distro agnostic managed pack for Linux. So in previous releases, there are several different Linux managed packs for like Ubuntu or Rail or SLES, right, for the various different versions. That has now been simplified, so there's kind of more of a universal Linux managed packs that covers all of those versions to simplify things like overrides and things like that. Other enhancements, there has been support added for Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8. If you have that environment now that's officially supported, once you put in update rollup 1, there's been performance and reliability improvements for Linux. So many customers, I guess, have complained about where they typically have some heartbeat failures or random heartbeat issues. Those issues have been resolved in this current release. They're increasing the reliability of monitoring your various different Linux-based agents within the environment. There's also been some updates to various different manager packs. In particular, there's like an enhanced Azure Managed Pack as well as Storage Spaces Direct Managed Pack that has been released in the same cycle as the update rollup 1 for 2019. Another big value add or feature that's been added is support for group managed service accounts. So group managed service accounts allows you to put a service account and the environment will manage the password rotation of that automatically for you. So if you typically in your environment at your company or business or whatever, what have you, typically have a policy where you have to reset passwords or rotate password every 3 months, 2 months, or whatever that frequency is. This will alleviate you from having to do that manual task, where you can tell SCOM to use a group managed service account instead, and then with the integration with AD, it will manage those passwords automatically for you. And then finally, there's various different scalability improvements for Unix Linux agent monitoring. So this feature has already been available as of SCOM 2016, I believe, but it was not a default setting. So you'd have to actually make a registry change to enable this increased capacity starting in SCOM 2016. But now this is actually the default setting to use the higher capacity monitoring capabilities for Unix Linux systems. So that's that. So now we're going to jump back over here. There's also a whole slew of updates, improvements, issues, and fixes. We won't go through this entire list, but as you see, there's a quite wide variety of fixes that have been introduced across pretty much every feature of every role of SCOM, including like the web console. Let's mention like there's a lot of Unix Linux monitoring fixes and changes. There's some fixes to the admin console, and a few other things. So you can kind of go to the site, look through the list. There's quite a few bug fixes, so this is a pretty major releases as far as snapping out bugs, as well as adding several new features into the platform. All right, so All right, so what you're gonna do, you're gonna just have to, once you're on the site for update rollup 1, scroll down a bit. Down here, you'll see the download link to download the individual files. So that'll allow you to, if you want, you can still update the update very similarly how you have in the past, where you like download all individual packages and then run them each one by one. And then, as I mentioned, there's that new simplified method for the management server role in particular, or you could download using this link here. And then there's also a out-of-band manager pack available that fixes some of the pain points and that's been in SCOM for several years actually, where when you look in the administration console, you may not see the actual version of the agent that's actually running on the system. It may be, it'll be like the base version, but once you put on additional update rollups and things, that version never updates. So this out-of-band managed pack that you have to download separately resolves or fixes that issue that's been around for quite a long time in SCOM. All right, so what I've done here, I have already gone and downloaded all of the files. So as mentioned, that first link that I pointed to, this link here, that includes those 4 files and these 2 down here. So all of those, and then that simplified installer is here. So I'm just going to go ahead and try it and run the simplified installer, and let's see what happens. So it looks like it starts the WinZip self-extractor process. All right, and then we get a prompt. So simple complemental notice for update rollup. Mention a lot of languages, so we read all of that. I'm going to say I read it and agree. And I'm going to click install. And it looks like it hasn't asked me anything else. So just kind of run the executable, click, and then wait a few minutes, and hopefully this should be successful. So I am logged into an account that is a local administrator on the server. It's also a SCOM administrator. And this account, I believe, is also a sysadmin, has sysadmin rights on the SQL Server instance. So if in this new process, if you don't have sysadmin on the SQL Server, it should still work. But one piece I noticed that don't or may not work is that your agents may not go into pending management after the update if you don't have sysadmin rights on the SQL Server. So that's just one thing to keep in mind, because I know in a lot of environments the SQL Server is often managed by like a totally separate team, and they may not want to necessarily give the SCOM administrator rights on the SQL servers, because there may be various other databases and things within the system that they don't want the SCOM administrators to be able to have access to, or have some other product come in and make some changes that they're not aware of what it's doing. So we're going to give this a few minutes to run, and we'll check back in as soon as it finishes. All right, so that looked like that completed successfully. So painless, very easy, only took a few minutes. It's like a 2-3 click situation. So that's very nice. Like the improvement there. So let's go ahead and move on to additional steps here. So as I mentioned, this simplify piece only covers the management server role. So if you have other roles installed on your server, you will still need to install those very similarly how you have in the past. So just keep that in mind. And as far as if you have multiple management servers, it doesn't matter which management server you start with. I would say just really one of the most important things, you just want to make sure you're not doing them all simultaneously. You just want to do them one at a time, and just iterate through all your management servers and run this update process on there. And as far as the database configuration to manage packs, like that really only needs to occur once. So once you've done that on the first management server in the environment, those extra steps, those additional steps won't need to be done again on the additional management server, since the management server are all using the same database, and that database will all have all the same management packs. So once you update it through this initial first one, then it's done for all of them. That makes sense. So your secondary and third management server, or however many you have, that process should be much quicker the next time you have to run it to update. All right, so let's move on. So we're going to go over to, go back over to my folder here. So you see here I have updates for the agent, I have updates for the console, for the gateway, if you have the reporting server role piece, the server, which we just technically already just did using that new Simplified process, and then you have the web console piece. So this server actually has the web console piece, so we're just going to go and run through that process here. So what I typically do here, I typically will just double click on the MSI or file, and I just like to copy this file out. So you don't have to do it this way, but this is just my preferred method. I copy this file out, and I normally just paste it back to the path, and then you can just double click on it. Some environments you may run into weird like policies and things that may make this not work if you just simply double click on it. So to be safe, what I will do a lot of times, I will actually run it from an elevated command prompt. Well, actually that's PowerShell or PowerShell, as long as it's elevated. So I'm gonna just do CMD, and then I'm actually gonna, yeah, I'm already running this elevated, I believe, right? Where am I? Well, let's double check. Run as administrator. Okay, yeah. All right. So have my elevated command prompt, and then I'm just gonna run this executable. So what I did there, just drag and drop there. So that's a feature that it's not always obvious that you can do. So a lot of times you may just go and type out that whole path. This may save you a few keystrokes. You can just copy, well, not copy, just drag and drop the executable you want to run to the command prompt, and it'll fill in the path for you. So I'm just gonna, as you just saw, just drag and drop that, and I'm just gonna hit enter. I get a little prompt, security warning. Do I want to really do that? Yes. Hit open, and then it's going to go. So it doesn't prompt me again. It's not prompting me for any questions. This is very similar to what you've seen in previous update rollups when dealing with the web console piece. It just goes through, run, and updates the relevant bits. So that part is very easy and exactly the same as you've experienced in previous update rollups. All right. So moving on, I'm going to upgrade my console, and I'm just going to do that same process. Going to drag my console app here, drop, but actually, jumping ahead of myself. So actually what I need to do first, I need to extract it. Forgot to do that. So I'm going to just double click on it again, copy out my executable, paste that back in, and then I want to drag and drop that installer file there, so the MSP, and just hit enter. Again, gonna click open, let that installer run. Should take just a few moments here. Maybe more than a few moments. It's still going. All right, so yeah, that just finished. So now, effectively, as far as my management server and the roles that are running on this particular management server, it's actually updated. It's now running update rollup 1. So we can go into the console and just validate that, hey, that the installer went okay. So let's do that now. So I'm just gonna go ahead and launch my console. Let's minimize some of these windows out the way. All right, I'm up on my console here. So I'm just gonna go help and about and see if this says update rollup 1 or anything changed there. So this doesn't look any different here. No, I think this said this same version before I updated. Could be wrong, but I believe this, maybe that hasn't changed there. So I'm just gonna say okay there. Let's do a little bit more investigating and see if this has actually upgraded or did anything. Maybe we didn't upgrade successfully. Didn't see any errors interactively, at least. So I'm going to go to administration. Then I'm going to jump over to my management server tab. So here, actually it does, like it says, update rollup 1. So that looked like that did take it successfully, right? update rollup 1 patch. It's already displaying that. So that's kind of one of the enhancements that was added around in 2019 or maybe 1807 when they added these features, where you can see the various different roles in this particular view. So it looked like we've been successful here as far as the installation. Let's check out the database. Actually, I may not have a database deployed here. I think actually, yeah. This database is actually reporting to a different management group, so I probably need to fix that at some point. But yeah, that's why we don't have any data there. But as far as the management server, as I mentioned, it looked like that was a success. Let's check out the web server piece. So interestingly, this does not say update rollup 1. So it could be maybe the discovery that this runs is not, that update this field hasn't happened yet. So maybe I might need to give it a little bit more time in order for this to show up. That could be what's going on. So I'll check back on this later and see if I see an update rollup 1 patch show up there, because it's not there currently. So it may be, like I mentioned, maybe just a discovery issue where that version will need to be rediscovered, and it'll show that there. But at this point, like we have a successful installation or upgrade of SCOM 2019 to update rollup 1, and this has been a success. And this is definitely much easier than the previous release. Not that the previous update rollups are very hard to install, but this does take a few steps out of the loop where you don't have to do that, as far as like updating the database and importing those management packs. So good deal. So one other thing to be aware of is that from time to time, if you've had a lot of customizations in your environment as far as registry keys and things like that for Operation Manager, some of those may be wiped out by some of these update rollups. So if you have those well documented in your environment, you might want to just go back and validate that those values are still there that you wanted to have in your environment, and redeploy them if they've gotten wiped out by the update. So this has been a success, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Oh, I don't know if you caught that right before I was about to tell you bye. Update rollup 1 patch just popped in for web server, so that it was a discovery issue. Just took a few minutes for it to kick in and show up. So look like we're all good. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.